Every single day, billions of people unlock their phones with nothing more than a touch. I mean, you probably do it dozens, maybe hundreds of times a day without even a second thought, right? You just reach into your pocket, place your thumb against a small piece of glass, and bam, in a fraction of a second, your entire digital life unlocks. It's this seamless, almost magical interaction that we've completely taken for granted. But beneath that smooth piece of glass lies an incredibly fascinating intersection of ancient human biology, cutting-edge material science, and some seriously complex mathematical algorithms. This isn't just about turning on a screen, folks. It's a profound technological marvel that seamlessly bridges the physical world of human anatomy with the invisible realm of digital data. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly what happens in those microscopic, imperceptible moments between the time your skin meets the glass and your screen actually lights up.
Because, think about it, this everyday action begs a massive question. How can a tiny piece of silicon, often smaller than a postage stamp, recognize one specific fingerprint out of the roughly 8 billion people currently living on Earth? When you press down, how does that hardware know it's really you? How does it instantly distinguish your living, breathing finger from, say, a high-resolution photograph or a clever 3D printed silicone mold made by a hacker? And maybe most importantly for our privacy, where does all that highly personal biometric info go once the device captures it? Well, to answer these questions, we actually have to travel back in time. Because long before the invention of smartphones or microprocessors or even electricity for that matter, we have to understand the remarkable biological canvas that makes this entire global technology possible in the first place.
Section 1. The fingerprint phenomenon. Biology and uniqueness.
Okay, to truly grasp the tech inside your phone, we first have to look at the biological marvel that is human friction ridges. These actually form incredibly early in fetal development. By roughly the 13th to 15th week of pregnancy, the basal cell layer of the fetal epidermis begins to grow rapidly. It grows so fast, in fact, that it literally buckles, forming these raised primary and secondary ridges. From an evolutionary standpoint, these ridges are absolutely essential. They act like biological amplifiers. When you brush your hands across an uneven surface, they transmit microvibrations to sensory nerves so you can feel incredibly fine textures. They also help us grip rough surfaces, channeling water away, kind of like the treads on a car tire. But here's the thing. Because they grow so rapidly and violently in the womb, they don't form perfectly parallel lines, and that brings us to a crucial point. Modern scanners aren't just looking at the whole swirly picture of your finger. They're actively hunting for what we call minutiae. If you look incredibly closely at your own fingertip right now, you won't just see a continuous series of unbroken loops. You'll see lines that suddenly unexpectedly stop. You'll see ridges that split into a Y shape. Those are known as bifurcations. You'll even see tiny isolated dots or little biological islands where a ridge splits and then reconnects a millimeter later. In the world of fingerprint identification, these specific logical ridge discontinuities are called minutiae points. When a forensic scientist or a computer algorithm looks at a fingerprint, they are mapping the exact spatial relationships, the precise distances, and the angles between these specific minutiae points. It's exactly like mapping a totally unique constellation of stars in the night sky.
Now, this biological process is so incredibly sensitive to its environment that it creates something mathematically stunning. Get this. Even monozygotic, identical twins who share the exact same DNA have completely different fingerprints. Crazy, right? While genetics certainly dictate the general characteristics, like whether you happen to have a whorl, an arch, or a loop pattern, the exact microscopic layout of your minutiae points is determined by chaotic, random factors in the womb. Think about the sheer chaos of that microenvironment, the shifting density of the amniotic fluid, the exact position of the growing fetus, minuscule differences in bone growth rates, and the unique web of blood vessel formation. All of this creates tiny, localized pressures on the developing skin. Because these factors affect every single patch of skin differently, no two fingerprints are ever identical. Actually, your own 10 fingers don't even match each other. Here's a wild fact for you. The friction ridges on the hands of a koala bear are so structurally similar to ours that they've actually confused forensic scientists and been mistaken for human prints at crime scenes.
Humans have recognized this biological uniqueness for a very long time, way before we understood the science of fetal development. Thousands of years ago in ancient Babylon, merchants were pressing their fingertips into wet clay tablets to sign binding contracts. But it wasn't until the late 19th century that the staggering mathematical scale of this uniqueness was finally calculated. Back in 1892, a brilliant statistician and anthropologist named Francis Galton published a detailed statistical model of friction ridges. By carefully analyzing the probabilities of where minutiae points are placed, he calculated that the chance of a false positive, meaning two different individuals happening to have the exact same fingerprints by pure cosmic coincidence, was roughly 1 in 64 billion. To put that massive number into perspective, that is roughly 8 times the current population of the entire planet. Your fingerprint is an absolute, undeniable biological one-off. It's an evolutionary signature that belongs only to you.
Section 2. How sensors see us. Optical, capacitive, and ultrasonic.
For decades, recording a fingerprint meant rolling your finger in dark, messy, printer's ink and pressing it firmly onto a paper card. But to put this identification system into modern consumer electronics, engineers had to figure out how to instantly measure the microscopic physical differences between the ridges, the raised parts of your skin, and the valleys, which are those tiny empty spaces between them. They first solved this with optical sensors, which, let's be honest, are the oldest trick in the digital book. Think of an optical scanner as a high-contrast digital camera taking a flash photograph. When you place your finger on an optical sensor, LEDs brightly illuminate your skin. A light-sensitive microchip then snaps a picture. The raised ridges appear dark, and the deep valleys reflect light differently. But there is a huge flaw with taking a 2D photograph. Have you ever tried to unlock an optical sensor while eating pizza? Yeah, a tiny smudge of grease or a drop of sweat completely ruins the image. Plus, they can sometimes be fooled by a high-resolution photocopy of a print. So enter capacitive sensors. These were a massive leap forward. Instead of using light, they use electricity to create an electrical topographic map. A capacitive scanner contains a grid of hundreds of thousands of microscopic electrical capacitors. When your finger touches the sensor, only the physical, raised ridges of your skin make actual contact with these tiny metallic plates, changing their electrical charge. The valleys of your fingerprint, which are just holding tiny pockets of air, barely change the charge at all. By measuring the electrical variations across the entire grid, the scanner builds a highly accurate 3D electrical map. It isn't just looking at your finger, it's literally feeling your print with electricity. But the absolute pinnacle of modern smartphone biometrics is the ultrasonic sensor. This brilliantly illustrates just how far the technology has come. These sensors work almost exactly like tiny, microscopic submarines using sonar right beneath the glass of your phone. You see, optical and capacitive sensors still have a physical weakness. If your finger is soaking wet from the rain or incredibly dry from winter air, the electrical map or visual image can still get distorted. Ultrasonic sensors solve this entirely by sending high-frequency sound waves out of a specialized piezoelectric transmitter. These sound waves travel out, hit your finger, and bounce back to a receiver. Because sound travels differently through the dense, water-filled skin of a ridge compared to the empty air pocket of a valley, the sensor calculates the exact nanosecond it takes for the echo to return. Furthermore, these sound waves are so powerful that they actually penetrate the outer, dead layer of your skin. They travel deep enough to read the living, vascular tissue beneath it. It creates an insanely detailed 3D topological map that is virtually impossible to fool with a 2D photograph or even a highly detailed gelatin mold created by a hacker.
Section 3. The matching process, hardware signals to secure storage.
But capturing the physical data? That's really only half the battle. Generating a beautiful electrical or ultrasonic map of your finger is completely useless unless the phone has something to compare it to and a way to do it instantly. This is where we enter the invisible digital journey, a massive symphony of signal processing that happens inside your phone in mere milliseconds. Let's walk through this incredible sequence. First up is pre-processing. The raw data captured from the sensor is naturally messy and full of noise, so the processor immediately applies a digital ridge thinning algorithm, aggressively stripping away redundant pixels and converting the messy scan into a stark, 1-bit, high-contrast map. Next, the algorithm goes hunting for the minutia. It rapidly scans those simplified lines, hunting down every single bifurcation and ridge ending. As it finds them, it marks each one with specific X and Y coordinates on a grid, while also noting the specific angle of the ridge's flow. Instead of trying to clumsily compare a whole massive picture, the algorithm creates a sleek geometrical map of these specific points. Finally, it takes this new constellation of data points and overlays it against the stored template on your phone. It mathematically calculates the exact degree to which these two constellations align. If the strict mathematical threshold is met, boom, the system authenticates and your phone unlocks. And this entire wildly complex process happens in roughly the time it takes you to blink your eyes.
Now, this naturally raises a massive concern about digital privacy. But it is absolutely crucial to note that your phone isn't saving a raw JPEG photograph of your actual finger. Not at all. Instead, it securely stores an encrypted mathematical template that represents those extracted features. This should be a huge relief for anyone worried about their biometric data being stolen. When you first buy your phone, set it up, and tap the sensor a dozen times, the device is carefully building a complex mathematical hash. It's literally just a long string of binary code based on the physical distances and geometric angles between your specific minutia points. It mathematically encrypts this string and locks it away in an isolated, heavily fortified hardware enclave right on your device's primary processor. This data is purposefully kept off the cloud. But more importantly, if a sophisticated hacker actually managed to break into that secure enclave, they wouldn't get a picture of your fingerprint. They just get a meaningless mathematical jigsaw puzzle that cannot possibly be reverse engineered back into a physical image.
Section 4. Security and Everyday Uses. Balancing Access and Protection.
Because this technology has quietly moved far beyond the realm of criminal investigations and crime scene labs, biometrics are now the everyday gatekeepers to our daily lives. But designing a system for the massive, unpredictable general public requires compromises that highly controlled forensic labs simply don't have to make. Security systems must perform an incredibly delicate balancing act, tweaking the algorithms carefully. In the tech industry, this is known as managing the false acceptance rate, or FAR, versus the false rejection rate, or FRR. Imagine if engineers made the algorithm too strict, requiring a 100% perfect mathematical match of every single minutia point. The false rejection rate would completely skyrocket. You'd constantly get locked out of your own phone just because you washed your hands, or got a tiny paper cut, or simply pressed your thumb down at a slightly weird angle. It would be a terrible user experience. Conversely, if engineers make the algorithm too loose to prioritize convenience, the false acceptance rate rises. Imagine the sheer panic of your friend picking up your phone, having a roughly similar thumbprint, and accidentally unlocking all of your personal text messages. No thanks. To solve this, modern smartphones combine that high-end capacitive or ultrasonic hardware with sophisticated machine learning algorithms. These algorithms silently adapt over time, continuously learning the slight daily variations of your physical touch to minimize both of these errors simultaneously.
This delicate balance of security and convenience has fundamentally changed the modern world. From those clunky, specialized corporate laptops back in the mid-2000s to standard modern smartphones, this technology has quietly and seamlessly become the most trusted lock and key in all of human history. When Apple introduced Touch ID to the mainstream in 2013, followed quickly by Samsung and a host of Android competitors, it literally revolutionized digital security overnight. We went from typing easily forgotten, easily stolen 4-digit PINs to unlocking our lives with our own biology. Today, this massive technological infrastructure protects almost every aspect of our modern society. It protects a teenager's private text messages while simultaneously securing billions of dollars in global digital financial transactions on platforms like Apple Pay and Google Wallet. It underpins international border control via biometric passports and acts as the primary unhackable access control for highly sensitive corporate and government facilities worldwide. It really has become an invisible, seamless bridge between our physical bodies and our rapidly expanding digital existence.
Section 5. The Future of Touch. Under-display tech and beyond.
Finally, let's look at where this technology is rapidly heading as hardware continues to evolve. For a very long time, biometric sensors had to be housed in dedicated physical buttons on the front of a phone or in little circular cutouts on the back. But the endless consumer pursuit of sleek, edge-to-edge screens forced engineers to innovate even further, pushing the absolute boundaries of material science. With the massive rise of in-display fingerprint sensors, our devices are now evolving to capture our unique biometric data completely invisibly, reading right through the glass screen itself. These modern marvels rely heavily on either specialized optical cameras peeking through the microscopic gaps in the OLED display pixels or powerful ultrasonic waves pinging straight through the thick, scratch-resistant glass. Looking forward, the tech industry is already deep into the development of multimodal biometrics. This is where advanced artificial intelligence assists in combining your real-time fingerprint data with instant facial recognition or even infrared vein matching in your fingers. Picture a near future where the entire surface of your screen acts as one massive biometric sensor. You won't even have to look for a glowing icon or aim for a specific spot on the glass. The device will just inherently, securely know that it is you the very millisecond you pick it up.
The profound reality of unlocking your phone is something we rarely stop to consider. The next time your screen lights up with a single casual touch, take a brief moment to appreciate the staggering complexity of what's actually happening. You are pressing an ancient evolutionary artifact, your friction ridges, against a modern piece of glass. You're instantly triggering high-frequency ultrasonic sound waves or thousands of microscopic electrical charges that map your unique living biology, converting it into an encrypted mathematical constellation, all in the literal blink of an eye. It's not seeing your fingerprint, it's recognizing a biological masterpiece so uniquely yours that nature has never created another exactly like it. But as our glass screens become increasingly sophisticated, learning to flawlessly read our fingerprints, map the contours of our faces, and eventually monitor our very heartbeats, what part of our biological selves will become the digital keys of tomorrow?